welcome back. Welcome back to our, I guess, like the final stretch, but it's a good one. We have a panel, and then we have Joshua Bengio, so well done for sticking around. Good decision. And please come in. Yeah, I don't know why this side gets neglected. Do we all have a preference to go to our left, maybe? There we go. So welcome back. We're going to have a panel discussion now. The topic is, how should we prepare for an era of an augmented workforce? And please welcome your moderator, who is the product and technology leader and founder of RI Labs and the Responsible Innovation Project. She's also a guest lecturer at the University of California, Berkeley. Welcome to the stage, Alka Roy and her panelists.
We're almost to the end, everyone. Thanks for hanging in here. I see more people coming in. Come on in. This is a session about people. We've been talking about machines and machines and machines, and now we're going to talk about the people. I am very thrilled to be here and help you sort of close this out, and I'm excited to see where you take these ideas. We are joined here by some amazing panelists, and I'll introduce you to them in a bit. I wanted to start with the framing for this. You know, I was at this US AI Commission, and we were asked to make recommendations and testify. And I remember with the person next to me, who was a union leader, said that we used to worry about that robots would take our jobs. Now we worry that we're going to have to report to robots, and they'll be our bosses. And you know, it's really changing the paradigm. And the way we're designing the world, our systems, is designing us, the people. The way we engage, the way we create, the way we become of use, and the way we work. So I'm going to sit here with our esteemed panelists here and see if they'll help us kind of add perspective on how we can get ready for it, but maybe how we can even rethink work and how we create workers. So we are joined here today. Okay. I thought there was a slide. If you can pull up the slide with the speakers, and I'll just introduce them really briefly. Here we have Mark Carpinelli, who is the head of AI and skills research at LinkedIn. We have Kevin Jones, and he's a director of Center of Learning from Indiana University. Natalie Mayerhofer, right here, local. So find her. She's a learning officer and co-founder of CHUM, School of AI in Healthcare, and Jared Spataro, and I hope I got that right. And he's the corporate vice president of AI at Work at Microsoft, and he'll be sharing some interesting research, and so will Mark. So we'll start with you, Jared. I know that you have some reports and data behind what skills are working, how are things changing for people, and how can they prepare? So can you share?
Sure. We've got a lot of really interesting stuff, but I'll share one that really surprised me. We expected, as we were going out to study AI, that the people who would be most conversant, that would be best at its use, would be essentially digital natives, so the younger generations. And we actually found exactly the opposite. We found that people who had managerial and leadership experience actually did better in core tasks with AI than folks who were just more digitally literate. And the reason that's true, as we dug into kind of the causation behind it, is that the digital tools that we use today often train us. If you think about the way a search box has trained you, you're trained to find the perfect 3 words that will do interesting things for you. But using AI tools, generative AI tools, is much more like assigning something to a human direct report. The more context you give it, the better you are at dividing it up into small tasks, the better the responses are. So it was just a non-intuitive finding, counterintuitive finding for us that made us think, wow, you know, the skill set that we think is going to be most valuable, there probably are some ways for us to really dig into that, and we can maybe talk about that later.
And did you find those skills useful in the entire life cycle? So sometimes, people think about thinking about a complex problem or risks or responsible production of AI. People have been talking about that as risk management or governance. Did you find that those skills made a difference through the life cycle of product development engineering?
Of someone using the tool?
Yes.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I'll give you some simple example. Today I've heard a lot on this stage about discussions about how AI can get things wrong. Imagine that. But anyone who's ever had a person as a direct report knows they're not always right. So you learn to actually kind of provide a judgment or an assessment on what people are giving to you, is how much you believe them and how you're going to use their input. Well, it turns out you have to do that with AI tools too. You don't sit there and just complain, oh, it's not always right. We mostly think of interacting with computers like interacting with a calculator. You punch something in, it's going to give you something out. That's not actually the skill set needed. You have to be able to assess risk, apply judgment, and assess how much you believe something is accurate and how much you can act on it. So it's those types of skills that really shift us.
What I'm hearing is almost like we need new mental models to look and understand what we're facing. Mar, what about your research? I mean, you've got LinkedIn. People are literally coming in there to think about work and engage in work. What did you find through your research?
Yeah, actually, very similar findings to Jared's, but I'm going to take a step back. This is a question that we think really hard about at LinkedIn, and we are lucky that we have the richest data set in the world on professionals and what they're doing and how they are upskilling and using these skills at work. And what we're seeing so far is that skills is actually a very useful framework to think about how technologies are disrupting the workforce. And past disruptions have normally focused on very specific industries. If you think of, I don't know, like the assembly line, you'll think immediately of manufacturing. But these kind of technologies like AI are very immersive and are really reaching most workers in every single industry, so the impact is likely going to be very large. And when we think of how, that's where the skills come up. It's about how workers will spend less time on tasks and skills that now can be aided by the AIs, and more time on things that are very unique to humans. So that is partly what Jerry was saying, more critical thinking, more reasoning, more judgment when it comes to using the AIs, but also exploring and enabling more work and saving time with these new tools. So I think it's that combination between these human skills and AI adoption, but in the sense of, like very simple. I'm not talking about learning machine learning. I'm talking about just learning how to have a growth mindset and adopt some of these new technologies that are as easy as hopping on a VC. So
how do we look at things? And I remember when I was teaching a class at Berkeley, and these are CS students and product managers. And one of the things that we don't do very well teaching at universities is critical thinking and real life skills for these engineers that they're going to be going out and building things, and then we wonder why some of these startups are created. So let's shift a little bit about learning platform. Like, what are we teaching and how are we creating these learning environments? And interestingly, what I wanted to also explore is, I went to this school to give a talk to these, I was telling Jared about this, and my daughter's school, and I was talking to them, these third graders, and I asked, do you get tired of people asking you what you're going to be when you grow up? And they said, yes, we get so tired, yes. And they said, it starts limiting. We start limiting our humans, children, from very early age about what they should pursue or not pursue, and what they should explore interdisciplinary ways. So that's just a thought to explore. How are you thinking about learning, especially when it comes to healthcare, and how is it changing?
So perhaps to start, I'd just like to say that this is an amazing quote, and I'm not going to butcher his name, but I believe it's Andreas Schleicher from the OECD, who said, we used to learn to do a job, now learning is the job. So that's the first thing you need to take into consideration. So in an era where there's this exponential or beyond exponential growth of technology, a huge volume of new knowledge that needs to be integrated for these healthcare workers, after a 16-hour shift, there's like 300 articles on COVID alone during the peak of COVID. So how do you bring it to them? And that is a big part of what we do, is trying to think, okay, what is the big diversity of our learners? What's the reality? And what are the diverse methodologies that we can put out there? So micro-learnings, podcasts, books, conferences, workshops, informal like communities, everything that we can put together to encourage learning formally and informally is very important. And to that add what we refer to as a competency framework. So think about the future and what skills will still be relevant 10 to 15 years from now. Start building those today, and not just for the elite, not just for the executives. You really want to be able to teach everyone and anybody who's affected by healthcare. So from the patients, the doctors, the nurses, the students, the researchers, everybody benefits from it.
Yeah, and I wonder if teaching listening skills for that.
It is. It's one of the
I don't know how
biggest
we
ones.
do that well.
Empathy, right? You have to be able to listen to the person, to understand his or her needs, and be able to adapt to that person as well. It's very important.
And Kevin, you're navigating learning in a business environment. Similar to what Natalie was speaking about skills, but I'm also wondering about, are we getting something fundamentally wrong? Something fundamentally wrong about education and learning and the investment we're making in teaching machines versus teaching people. If you had a comment about that.
Yes, part of our dilemma is we tend to educate in the same way we've always educated. Classrooms, professor, things like that. So here is what has occurred. Students have more access to learning than ever before. They need us, yes, but they don't need us as much. And what we can provide them is that applicable learning, that learning in context, developing competencies, skills, and knowledge, and not so much focused on my degree says, but what can I do? And how can I build on what I do? And last point, learning how to learn skills. Basically, we are not all taught how to learn. And in today's environment with so much misinformation, we need to be able to learn with discretion. So discerning is another skill for us.
So I appreciate everybody's perspective, and we're going very fundamental. We're saying we need to change something. Can you give people, audience here, some tangible example, like practical things they can do? Say, if you go back and go over there, this kind of program is working well. Because at the end, we hear about, we value people's skills, we value responsible AI, we value everything. But when people get hired, we speak with the power of who gets hired, right? And what qualifications do people look to enter a school or a job? So in that vein, what would you say? We'll start with you, Mar. Is there a practical, what can people here take away from if they're either trying to train their workforce or people in their jobs, they're mid-level or they're younger and trying to figure out how do I, stay relevant in the workforce?
I will tell you the top thing we're seeing in data, which is the importance of adaptability and flexibility. And we're seeing that in two aspects. The first one is that last year, we've seen the fastest skill change across the workforce as compared to any other year on LinkedIn, which means that something happened, and we know what happened, but something happened, and people are adapting faster. They're changing their skills faster. And that's particularly true for the occupations that are more exposed to generative AI. And the second thing is, just to give you a very quick example, we look a lot at different occupations, and one of them is marketing professionals, which is a pretty well-known general occupation. And what we're seeing is that marketers are starting to spend less time on things like marketing analytics or editing or writing, and leveraging these technologies to spend more time on other things like demand generation, critical judgment, engagement with clients. So we're seeing that skill shift already happening, and we're expecting it to accelerate. So it's around having that flexibility and agility.
So Jared, when those skills are changing, and if Gen AI development continues to catch on to, say, even synthesis, and in AI healthcare, we're looking at AI synthesizing customer comments, et cetera. What's the next level? What practical things do you think people can do to prepare?
So, as Kevin mentioned, it's important to learn how to learn. And I realize that may seem strange, but if you've never asked yourself, hey, how do I learn? Like, what are the things that I actually enjoy learning about? How do I receive information better than others? It's really important for you to do that introspection. The same thing applies on the other side. If you mentor, if you coach, if you teach, ask yourself, how do my learners learn? And how am I teaching? Because we can do surgery with robots now. We're still teaching with PowerPoints from 2003. It does not make sense. So you need to also be able to do the same thing. And we talk about 4P medicine, which is preventive, predictive, personalized, and participative. And the same thing applies to education and teaching. You want it to be preventive, predictive, personalized, and participative. So make sure you have tools for all the people who teach and mentor. We've developed a bunch of things for all those people who are responsible on our team. You're welcome to reach out to us if you're looking for amazing tools on how to teach using AI in healthcare for AI as well. But everything you can do to reinforce those roles will be
I love the excitement.
Yeah. Well, it is, right? Because you see these people, they're naturally passionate about what they do in an environment which can be really tough. So you need to be able to give them tools to help them do what they want to do and build the next generation of healthcare workers. Yeah.
So definitely different ways of learning tools. And Jared, then can you talk about what are those? We're still trying to figure out, like, when people go what practical strategies can people do? What should they go do? What could they do next as they leave this room?
Sure, I'll get very practical on two that come to mind. One's very tactical and one might surprise you. So the first one, I think you've probably heard a bit about, and it's your ability to learn how to do what would be called prompt engineering. So just learning how to interact with an AI tool, learning that it's not what we call a single turn activity, but a multi-turn activity, learning how to frame questions, how to provide context, and how to essentially read or assess what you're getting back. It's a very practical thing. You can start out, today with whether it be Copilot or Gemini or whatever, ChatGPT, you can start to learn those prompt engineering skills. A very simple one I'll give you. You can ground, with ChatGPT or Copilot, you can ground a particular inquiry by saying, referencing only this website.com, answer the following questions. That's called a simple grounding-based prompt. It's amazingly effective if you want to go search over ESPN.com or CNN.com or any place that you want to, and it's just a skill. You learn how to do that.
And there's a LinkedIn Learning course on it, so I encourage everyone to check it out.
Perfect. And then the other one is a little bit higher order. I would say what you really want to develop as a skill that will differentiate you is judgment. In your domain, having good judgment requires experience. It requires watching people and sometimes machines operate. But I think some of the people that will command the best premiums now and in the future will be people who can exercise and demonstrate really good judgment. So one very tactical, one a bit more executive or strategic.
And you can actually probably combine the two, because when you interact with Gen AI, how you frame a question, just frame it like 3 different ways, and then the validity of it, very quickly you can actually start getting very nonsensical things and being able to say, where is it appropriate? Where is it appropriate? So I don't know if you saw in the beginning where somebody used Gen AI to send a message after a shooting, it was in Virginia, and when people found out, if you're trying to apologize to your partner or spouse, make a mistake. Don't use Gen AI. So just using judgment of where it's appropriate or not, I think that can be combined very much and practiced I don't like where they call it hallucination. It's really errors and mistakes and erroneous information. So knowing how to go through that would be very valuable. So Kevin, one thing that I wanted to come back to this is in synthesizing this idea of what practical things people can do.
Yes.
One of the things through the learning systems that we have today, sometimes including business, because AI, the way it's experienced is through business models as well, right? So it's not just that we need to look at how we're making AI, but also how we're making businesses. And just like that in other disciplines, can you talk a little bit about how we could prepare or change things in the context of, in your environment?
Well, here it's two things, okay? It's collaboration with AI and, surprise, collaboration with people. The basic fundamental capability we need to develop today is not to be a solo knowledgeable person. We work in tandem with AI. We must work in tandem with others. And now here's a most important point. It is not people who have your same background, your same degree, your same experience. We have to reach out and cross the aisle, if you will, to connect with people who have different perspectives, different ways of thinking, different insights. Because as you collaborate with others that way, you will amazingly discover things you didn't know. And then you can share and dialogue. There's another skill right there. Developing the competency of dialogue is an important point because it's a two-way sharing of information.
I think that's a really good point of how people have been sort of taught to learn or create, and especially in CS environment, alone, in front of just interacting with people and machine. You bring it up a really good point. When you encounter something new or when an ecosystem is changing, where's the access for collaboration? And you need relationship and trust. You need those skills to build those relationship and trust. I don't know if the timer is for questions or is that for the panel, but we'll continue, keep talking, and then maybe we'll just start taking early questions. But one of the things I wanted to just offer is if there's anything the panelists haven't shared, any last thoughts if you wanted to share, Jared?
One thing that strikes me hearing that last comment is you can often use today's generative AI technologies to give you a different perspective. So again, thinking about very practical things, one of my favorite questions to ask is, hey, if I were a data scientist looking at this situation, how would I see it? Or if I were a chemist, what would it look like? Or if I were a marketer or a salesperson. And because it has a broad knowledge base, the training base, it actually does a very nice job of providing you with some different perspectives.
So I believe it is question answer time. Okay, there was a hand. I see there's one right over there, in white, and then there was a hand somewhere in the middle. Oh, lots of hands. Yes. We might have to run out. If we run out of time, we'll find you outside. All right? Yes.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
My name is Valentina, and I'm a CHUM student. So everything that you've said, I totally agree with. I've been feeling like, honestly, the education system is not catching up to right now what the workforce is needed. We definitely need more of that sort of applicative form of knowledge because, yes, now we're in a very competitive stage. So my idea, though, is that AI right now is sort of mirroring our own ideas, right? It's sort of, we plug it in. And this is when ethics comes in, because we are biased individuals. We have our own perspectives. We come from our own societies, communities, and we have our own personality too. So when we're talking about discerning bias, right, that's, I think, the big issue of like, how do we understand judgment? How do we understand what's ethically correct or not in specific cases, right? Because you actually talked about erroneous information when we're, sort of using AI to do apologies for us, and then we're not actually going through that emotional connection of being able to express ourselves. And it's just, I would love to hear your opinions on how to actually understand these biases and how can we apply these into ethical models that we understand better.
Kevin, you wanted to take
Yeah, I'll address that right away. I teach business ethics, okay? And one of the things that we have to reject is the notion of, well, there are no common values. It's all relative. We have to reject that because we must find a set of common values. So you start with values, and then you can move that to a set of ethics, applying those values in a way that we can agree on. And this is essential in these times because, well, if we're letting the machine determine our values, maybe the dystopian people are right. Maybe it is the end. But we don't have to let that happen because we know what is right. And we can define things that are right. And we can define things that are wrong. And we have to stand up for those things and dialogue and come together on those things and apply those things to the AI.
And I would just say to the point of what Kevin was saying earlier and what he's saying now, and I think a lot of people have said, is we need to have a community, an independent community, where there's not encumbered by business models that can actually collaborate across industries and have that. We're trying to create a hub, and I think many other people are joining. We welcome you to join that community and create a public voice that can change the way we think about it, so we stop creating workers and start creating leaders. So I don't know, again, do we have?
Yeah.
Oh, all right, well, great, I love it. Yay. Did anybody else want to take the ethics?
Well, probably not the ethics side, but perhaps
maybe we can take another question.
Oh, yeah,
okay, go ahead. No, please go ahead.
No. Let's take a question. We'll
and then you can add your point.
Yeah.
I'll make sure we add your point. Yes.
Hello, I'm Howard Mull from Universal Creative. One key takeaway that I'm taking from this panel is that in the AI economy, liberal arts majors will get much, much better jobs.
Oh, wouldn't that be great?
But my question is as we start to have the ability to have AI pedagogues, what will be the role of teachers?
That's an excellent question.
Well, I'll answer it for you. And it's pretty straightforward. Here it is. Okay. Each of us as an instructor should enter the profession to make people better, to help people improve. Okay? Yes, there's the research. Yes, that is an important part. But the way we become relevant and stay relevant is how we connect and develop people, how we inform people, how we create opportunities for people, how we redefine things like liberal arts to say that, yes, communication skills are essential. We have to be that grown-up in the room that stands up and says, look, while you may know everything, we have some things to share with you as well. And we're not going to lecture to you, we're going to work with you. So if we're going to work with people, we will remain relevant. If we're just lecturing to people, we become less relevant.
That's true.
There was another question over here. Two questions, two hands have been right there. Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for the panel. My name is Chris Schiff, and for the past while, I've been just building products and just augmenting intelligence with AI. I'm turning 16 soon, and something I was really curious about, especially for Mar, is what kind of data do you think that, especially for LinkedIn, will be the most valuable in augmenting the workforce? Context is, I've been designing a product for LinkedIn. We're meeting with their CEO soon about it, and essentially we're leveraging data from LinkedIn's profile data. And I think that LinkedIn has so much untapped data that could be used for so many incredible generative AI products. So we can start with you, but I'm also curious about what all of you guys think about what kind of data is going to be the most valuable in this space.
Well, thank you so much for the question. I think we're living in a fascinating era because we have more data than ever before. Every time in the past that we went through a technological revolution, we were not seeing it unfold in real time as we are right now. So it's a very unique time to be alive, actually, and to be going through this technological revolution. So in terms of what data we can use, from LinkedIn, I can tell you we're looking at everything. We're looking at demand, we're looking at supply, and we're looking at equilibrium. And just to share an example, we're actually partnering with Microsoft in GitHub to look at how having access to GitHub Copilot is changing labor market outcomes for software engineers. And again, we're looking at all sides of the market. We're looking at whether supply of workers is changing, whether they're looking for different jobs, more senior jobs, more junior jobs. I know our time is out, so I can continue that answer later, but plenty of data, and let's leverage this unique moment.
And we have a hard stop because the next speaker has time constraints, but I know there was a hand up for a long time. We will make sure that we meet and answer that. Takeaway is collaborate with other people, learn to listen, and speak up for yourselves. Like, if you give your power away to technology and AI, then no one else will claim it for you. So that was the parting message, and thank you again to all of our panelists.
Thank you
for this discussion.